Hello and welcome to the Economy Magazine. I'm Benjamin Chong Alfares with the news from the global economy. Coming up today, an interview with I Know First analyst Josh Martin on Elon Musk's decision to share his patents. And Iranian students create a solar car. First, the headlines. Europe faces gas supply disruptions after Ukraine and Russia failed to bridge their disagreement over gas prices and debt. A top official from Russian state-owned gas firm Gazprom said chances were slim they would meet again. Ukraine's energy minister said Kiev would try to secure greater gas shipments from its Western European neighbors to make up for the lost Russian supplies. But the European Commission remains convinced a solution is still possible. Europe receives 15% of its gas supplies from Russia via Ukraine. More on the story following the headlines.
In full accordance with the contract, the decision was taken, and today from 10 in the morning Moscow time, Naftogaz Ukraine receives gas according to paid volume. As of right now, no type of payment, neither of old debts nor of prepayments for June, were paid.
The Group of 77 held its 50th Summit of Developing Countries in Bolivia over the weekend to call for a more fair New World Economic Order. UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon told leaders from more than 100 countries that the destiny of billions of poor people globally depends on their work. A G77 document hammered out in previous meetings sets forth ambitious new commitments to reduce poverty and inequality, but the goals approach their 2015 expiration date. China, which is not a G77 member, participated in the summit, partly in a nod to its expanding trade ties in Latin America. Colombian President Juan Manuel Santos won a second term on Sunday, allowing him to continue peace talks with Marxist guerrillas to end a 50-year war. Santos called on the FARC and rival guerrilla group ELN to heed the voice of the Colombian voters, saying it is the start of a new Colombia. But many remain skeptical, fearing that rebels will be reluctant to disarm or abandon a lucrative illegal drugs trade, even if they sign peace. Santos will now be under pressure to complete the 5-point negotiating agenda and keep the FARC rebels committed to the process. Most Asian stocks fell and U.S. futures dropped following the escalation of violence in Iraq. The MSCI Asia-Pacific Index lost 0.2%, with about 2 shares falling for each that rose. The regional benchmark last week posted a 5th week of gains, pushing the measure to its highest level since June 2008. An escalation of violence in the Middle East pushed oil prices higher and contributed to declines in Asia-Pacific equities on the final 2 trading days last week. Brent crude has surged close to a forecast seen for the end of 2014, boosted by ongoing violence in Iraq. The international benchmark surged about $114 on June 13th for the first time in 9 months. Wall Street analysts had previously projected the price would average $116 by the end of 2014. Iraq is OPEC's second biggest crude producer and is expected to provide 60% of the group's growth for the rest of the decade. For now, the immediate impact on Iraq's crude oil exports is limited, as the conflict is far from the Shiite-controlled oil fields and export terminals in the south. Medtronic, the second largest maker of medical devices, agreed to buy Covidien for $42.9 billion, wooed by strategic and tax advantages. The deal is the largest ever for Medtronic, giving it the size and scope to better compete with Johnson & Johnson, the largest medical device company. Use of Covidien's Irish address could also free almost $14 billion in cash Medtronic now holds overseas as a way to avoid being taxed on it under U.S. laws. Medtronic joins 44 other companies moving outside the U.S. to allow more use of cash held in overseas operations. As Russia and Ukraine fail to agree on payment terms and a new price for gas, Ukraine is not the only country under threat of a gas crisis. Daniel Roth has the details.
Disruptions to the gas supply in Europe could be the reality early on this week, now that Ukraine and Russia failed to establish a last-minute deal at talks hosted in Ukraine. The talks were aimed at staving off an energy crisis as the pro-Western government in Kiev has engaged with a months-long insurgency with pro-Russian separatists. The talks had gone late into the night this past Sunday, but did not bring the desired results. A European plan was unacceptable to the Russian party, which asked for $1.9 billion immediately and a price of $385 per 1,000 cubic meters on the year.
Main points of my proposal has been a plan for payments. This plan foresees $1 billion to be paid immediately tomorrow. For the moment, our Russian partners didn't accept this package.
Russia has said that without the immediate amount paid, they will refuse to deliver any gas, while Ukraine has agreed to pay the requested $1.9 billion, but is aiming for a price nearly $60 less expensive per 1,000 cubic meters. In early April, the gas price was raised 80% from just under $270 per 1,000 cubic meters. Russian President Vladimir Putin has pushed on the point that the price will not be lowered. Of course, there is some pushback.
We hope that the economy and common sense prevail over politics.
Ukraine takes half of its gas from Russia's Gazprom, and 15% of the fuel used by Europe goes through Ukraine. The EU has been acting as a mediator, but the situation between the former Soviet states remains unstable as violence continues.
Elon Musk, owner of the world's most successful electric car, Tesla Motors, has surprised many by offering his patents as an open source. But in a market where the combustible engine still reigns, some believe it is Musk's smartest move to date. Joining us in the studio is Josh Martin, business development and investment analyst at I Know First. Josh Martin, thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, so the mind boggles. Why would Elon Musk do this? Is this a good thing, a bad thing? Can you explain to us?
Well, shortly after they released earnings last month, the stock dipped to about the 180 benchmark, and since then, the stock rebounded about 13% in accordance with the algorithmic prediction by iknowfirst.com. Mm-hmm. Elon Musk decided to release these patents. There's obviously a clear downside as this promotes competition for their own Model S and future cars. However, the downsides are outweighed by the positive potential benefits.
Okay.
Such as Tesla now has the ability, as a pioneer with the electric vehicle, to be a visionary and to benefit from the energy infrastructure with its supercharger network. Right. More non-Tesla vehicles using the supercharger network benefit Tesla. If more cars are using the Tesla technology, that means they might be using more batteries from the Gigafactory that will be built in the next upcoming months.
Okay, so I mean, obviously this then ultimately is a good thing for Tesla.
Yes, it doesn't seem that way immediately, but once you look behind the details, you kind of understand what's actually going on here.
I mean, a layman's view would be, you look at what he's doing here, and clearly he's essentially the main enemy here, I guess, the arch rival is the combustible engine. I mean,
exactly.
The more people you have on your side, so to speak, even if they are competing with you, the more chance you have of going against the combustible engine. Correct?
Exactly. On his blog, he literally says that the true competition is not the small trickle of electric vehicles, but rather the flood of the gas combustion vehicles.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yes.
And so, what does this mean for the car industry at large, and for the electric car industry in particular?
Well, what this means, this whole move is not purely altruistic. Tesla does benefit from it, as do the shareholders. And from a legal perspective, nothing has actually changed. But this is more of a patent pledge and an invitation for automakers to approach Tesla with long-lasting, mutually beneficial relationship that will promote electric vehicles and make them more popular and more acceptable. It's something like something along the lines of, we won't sue you if you won't sue us.
Right.
It's actually been promoted that maybe BMW and Tesla might be under some sort of collaboration, although there's not many details as of just yet.
Gotcha. Well, Josh Martin from I Know First, thank you so much for joining us. It will be very interesting to see what happens with these patents, and some of them might actually make their way to Iran, where a group of young students has recently made a solar car, or a car run on solar panels. Let's take a look.
It's not easy for an Iranian to visit the US. It's even harder for an Iranian car. The Haveen 2 is no ordinary vehicle. It's 15 feet long and runs on solar power. Its designers hope to race it in the American Solar Car Challenge in Texas this July.
We found that there are competitions at the professional level for solar cars all over the world, in Australia, in Africa, and the United States. That gave students the motivation and encouragement to believe that they're capable of making a car like this.
The American Challenge is an 8-day, 1,700-mile road rally through 7 states. But the Haveen team may miss the start if they don't find a cargo company ready to transport the vehicle. The problem? Airlines are afraid of breaching international sanctions against Iran for its nuclear program. The car's surface is covered with 516 cells that convert energy from the sun into electricity.
Based on regulations for previous competitions, vehicles had to be 3-wheeled, but with the new regulations, the vehicles are moving towards 4 wheels, more like a conventional car, so that one day anyone could use it.
A previous model of Haveen, which means a bright sunny day in Farsi, raced in the 2011 World Solar Challenge in Australia, and the students behind the design are dreaming big.
I would like to meet the engineers all over the world that are working in this field. I hope the opportunities are created for the exchange of knowledge and experience so that new ideas in the field of solar cars are generated and we can make this car universal.
The Haveen 2 has reached a top speed of 110 kilometers per hour or 70 miles per hour during testing. But the team is up against the clock. With a delivery date no later than July 1st, the car's greatest race may just be getting beyond the borders of Iran in time.
And we now take a look at a range of other reports from around the world that we did not want you to miss in Media Watch with Daniel Roth. So Daniel, Business Insider, has a report.
That's what they call me. They call me the Business Insider.
Indeed.
No, Business Insider has a report that we decided to pick up here because it's a little out of the ordinary for us. Normally we talk about all the ills and inequality and all these things. Today we're going to take up the fight for another underrepresented group. This is the ultra-high net worth group. This people worth $30 million and up. And you wouldn't believe it, but these people, there's so many stereotypes about these people going around. It's really terrible. So the number one stereotype is that these people aren't self-made, that they inherited all their wealth. And of course, this is untrue. 65% of the world's ultra-high net worth people are self-made. This is a big deal, no?
It's a pretty big deal, yeah, I would say so.
And here we are saying these people aren't self-made, and 65%. Another one, only 19, most people think of bankers that always, like, all the rich people are bankers. This, of course, isn't true. 19% of the ultra-rich come from the financial industry. That's 19%.
Just 19%.
Just 19%. This is next to no one. These are,
Interesting to see where the other 81% come from.
Yeah, well, we know that it's not inherited.
Of course.
There's also this sort of sense these days in 2014 that the ultra wealthy are the 20-somethings in hoodies, like Mark Zuckerberg's and Jeff Bezos, and who's a little older, but these like tech billionaires who are kind of dropped out of school and whatever. The truth is that the average age of the ultra wealthy is 54, not 24. Most of them wear suits. Here we have Mark Zuckerberg in a suit behind
he's wearing a suit. Amazing.
And the truth is that it's not about dropping out. That most of the ultra wealthy are highly educated, and most of them come from university backgrounds.
Right.
So there's.
I think the article doesn't really look at okay, so they didn't inherit the wealth, but surely, I mean, to get a good education, it's not like they came from the slums either, is it?
Right. So the vast majority of people who are ultra wealthy, of course, they even if they didn't inherit the wealth, they they do have access to education and access to resources that most people do not, most people worldwide. Of course, we spend most of our time looking at inequality in the world.
Right.
And we thought it would be interesting to look at some of the stereotypes, but in no way are we saying that, we need to stop and defend the ultra-wealthy's right to be ultra-wealthy. We need to be critical, think critically about the world.
All right, well, let's continue thinking critically, and let's take this to beyond this show because we're done. I'm Benjamin Changlafaris. Thanks for watching. Watch us again tomorrow, and watch us on Twitter. Bye.